Well, here's another take on this. I was attempting to view my stream from my browser, but it looks like the streaming isn't actually going through so well, so supposedly it's recording, so I'll go with that. Anyways, uh, this is Crucifice on Twitch, or simply Cruce on most of my other gameplay attempts. Uh, Point of this video was to start a bit of a commentary review of the games I'm playing, mostly for friends and family, or anyone else that's interested or stumbles across this. So I apologize for the mistakes or problems or just general disinterest that you might get from watching this over time. But anyways, if it's not for you, it's not for you. There's plenty of other Twitch players out there, I guess. But anyways, enough of the non-selling of myself. Anyways, I wanted to do another playthrough of this game. I've just completed one on the normal difficulty. I have started it up again on the harder difficulty to give myself a little bit more of a challenge, as well as also to account for the fact that I've gone to a pretty high level in terms of my upgrades and character progression. The game overall I found pretty enjoyable. It's pretty much a Dark Souls third-person shooter. Kind of feels a little bit like Diablo in terms of the procedural generation, with a little bit of the. To me, it feels a little bit like Destiny in terms of the gunplay and kind of like the general feel of it, although less epic heroism, things like that. But it's similar vein, though. At least that's how I feel about it. The game generally has a positive critique, I think, from the masses on Steam for sure. Some gripes here and there, and some of them I share, but overall, I think the game is actually pretty solid. I think, was it Gunfire Games is the developer of Darkstalkers, or it has the devs that worked on that. So I can now actually say with some certainty that a lot of it does share a lot of the same aesthetics and design choices and general feel I've had from, or I felt from the other, from those games. So I will say that it's fairly solid, especially considering that it's not a full-fledged AAA title price tag of $60. It's only like, what, $40 or $39.99 USD. So for a low, quote-unquote, low-budget action title, it's actually pretty solid. Animations are fairly decent. They're pretty polished in most aspects. There's nothing too outrageously bad about them. Rendering's actually pretty solid. Graphics-wise, it's probably not the highest out there, given like other titles out there to date. I think Control is probably one of the other games out there that has risen or has a pretty high bar to it, but this game I think does a pretty solid attempt at making everything flesh, provides the atmosphere, and not to mention runs pretty well, although my system is probably more than adequate for it, so mileage on that may vary. But overall, the usage of effects, lighting, shadows, textures, and all that seem pretty detailed, and I've been liking it a lot. Sound is actually pretty solid too for the gunplay. This is that SMG weapon, which for the high fire rate, you normally get like just simple popping sounds, but it has a little bit of a beef to the base of the shots to it. The crossbow I'm using right here actually has a pretty satisfying reload animation, and yeah. Oh, you can also do melee attacks, so are so inclined. It's probably a game, little game play style you can play off of it, which is decent, but will only get you so far. But overall, the game actually offers a lot of options in terms of your gameplay, in terms of fighting, and as well as general loadouts with the things like mods and all that. So again, for a quote-unquote non-AAA title game, it's actually pretty solid. So we'll repeat that for the third time. Anyways, let's do some real action play. So a lot of the bosses have some pretty interesting playstyles to them. Most of these, like this one, is actually just a regular mob that's given a lost playback. But the arena is pretty expansive as well as also pretty detailed. Now I might make this a little easier given the what I'm doing right now. Okay. Well, I exit now. Now, if you notice, it's similar to Dark Souls, you really want dodging, so that's not really too different from the game style.
That was rough.
Now, I will actually admit, the fight will actually normally be a lot harder than what I'm kind of showing, but I'm going to credit the ease of the fight to loadout on you. For those that are just freshly joining in and watching, I'm pretty much taking advantage of a few special things that the game litters throughout the entirety of the game. It's particularly its gear types and special abilities and all that. So, just to kind of give a heads up, and I don't know if Gunfire Games is going to change this up drastically in the next patches or expansions, but the main thing I'm using is the Bandit armor set, which is a special armor set that you can find through performing a few special steps. I say special so many times. But as you can see right here, there's a little trait or bonus that I can get, which allows me to replace a spent bullet on hit. So anytime I hit a target with a weapon, there's a chance that I'll basically get the shot back. Now that itself is not too special, considering it's only a 35% chance right there. But I mean, if you think about it, it's not a bad deal. I mean, if you're shooting like say 100 bullets, there's a chance that you will get 35 bullets back for an effective total of 135 shots through the entirety of that, say, magazine, theoretically. Now, the magic of all this comes together with the Devastator crossbow I'm using. The main gist of this is that I'm using a multi-shot weapon, and this weapon shoots 5 shots per shot. So in this case, I have 5 bullets fired from my one shot. So you should be able to easily see that if I take one shot at an enemy, there is a chance that 5 times there's a 35% chance proc that I will get a bullet back. So not only is this very ammo efficient, because I'll get ammo back, it allows me to basically get a free shot off each time. So instead of firing and having to reload, like you see right now, if you noticed earlier in the fight, I was able to just shoot volley after volley onto the boss. So that it can be pretty powerful, and this particular weapon is actually pretty powerful considering the damage per bolt is being rated at 96 points of damage per bolt. So that's 5 times 96, so a little over 450 points of damage per shot, potentially. Of course, I have a few other things in play that beef up my damage, but overall it's pretty powerful. Now, this effect also affects some of the other weapons, like the shotguns, which have multi-pellet shots. So most of them have things where, like, the coach gun has 11 pellets or 10 pellets per shot. The pump-action shotgun has about 7 pellets per shot, and then there's like a little hand shotgun and a special boss weapon shotgun that shoots, I think, another 7 pellets per shot. Oh no, the hand shotgun shoots, I think, 11 pellets per shot. So with any of those said weapons, you have a good chance of getting some ammo back and making those very ammo efficient. So overall, this is a pretty fun build. And I think the biggest piece of that is also due to the trait system they have, which lets you really feel pretty powerful and gives you a sense of progression with your character. the thing I'm using that really synchronizes well is this Catalyst trait, which increases proc chances. Now, the one gripe I will have to say about this game is that you get all these like different effects and modifiers, and then right here you have a pretty decent readout of your advanced information, but realistically, a lot of that information you don't really get easily conveyed. Like this proc chance, I have no real indication of how effective that becomes. Seeing this item right here, for example, I have a proc chance. This actually, I believe, is reflected because I think initially it has a 35% chance of proccing, but of course with my trait being buffed up to plus 20%, it's now at a total of 55%. But other things like this for the trait right here, there's no indication like is it actually 55% chance or is it only 35% chance? We don't know because as of the latest patch to this game, there was a change to one item, like for this little guy right here, which used to have a very nasty synchronization to, or synergy to this whole build, in that you have a 5% chance to deal 300% bonus damage when you hit. So anytime you crit, you have a 5% chance that crit will basically become a super crit. And with that proc Callus trait, supposedly you're able to increase that to basically 25%, I believe, or maybe another like 2 or 4%. I don't know if it was additive or multiplicative, but suffice to say, it was pretty powerful. And it basically made it to where every shot you're doing some insane damage. So they supposedly delinked that sort of synergy that's possible. So that's no longer the case. But in this game, you have a few other options to increase the amount of times you crit. So again, 5% is not too bad. It's not going to be as crazy. You still can see the numbers pop up here and there. So actually, I'm just kind of wandering around right now just to pick up any last scraps that I may have missed. But yeah, the overall world in this game is pretty detailed. I mean, you're probably seeing right now, if you've been watching, is that the whole world is actually pretty well detailed in terms of like the clutter, the level design overall. Like the arena is pretty expansive. I mean, in some cases I would say it's needlessly large in some cases, but it gives you a sense of like immersion and like sense of space and depth. It's like you have this huge ass arena to make use of, so depending on certain playstyles, some of it might actually be useful, but I don't know how much that really comes to play. Most often, like when I played online, people tend to kind of stay into like a few certain areas, so it's probably up to the players to really make the most of it. But again, some of it doesn't really give you a good idea, like, hey, we should really take advantage of this or not. So that would be one thing, is that as expansive as the environments are, it seems like it was probably it was like needlessly large in many cases. But hey, it definitely gives that impression of large underground dungeons or large overworld expanses and things like that. So it's kind of hit or miss to me. It depends. It works here and there, but I think some of it could have probably been reused a little differently. All right, so let's see. Now, let's see. I think another point I'd like to make on this game is that, unlike other AAA titles out today, it's actually not too bad of a game. I mean, this isn't a AAA title, considering it's not $60, and it's only like, I think, a $40 price tag for USD, but it's pretty solid in terms of its production quality. Animations are pretty smooth, and the voice action, music, and all that's pretty high bar and all that, I would say. Like, Gunfire is actually pretty beefy, gives you that sense of punch. All the sound gives you a satisfying feel in terms of like the animations, and like the characters have a sense of agency and things like that, especially when combat occurs. Like you might see a little later, either earlier in my video or later on as I play, that you'll see the character like do little callouts saying like, "Oh shit," or come on," things like that. So it kind of gives that little extra detail, like, hey, yeah, this guy's not just casually reloading a magazine or just sliding shells back into his weapon. He's actually like going, "Oh shit, I gotta get this in before I get killed." So it's kind of cool in that little sense of detail and urgency. And I think the only real gripe in terms of animation and all that would be like the character interactions. The voice work is actually pretty good. Like they actually had some pretty good voice talent going on with this. At least people gave like a personality or a character to the entities in this world. But if you actually watch the facial animations, they're pretty stiff. You might actually see it once I talk to this one that you see up above. Let me first unlock this passageway.
The valley late at night. I lost my wife. That ain't right. Good. I like that catch-22. Why didn't they do catch-24? That'd be good.
So like yeah, the little chatter right there. It's like yeah, you feel a lot of like character and like personality from the character as well.
But looking good.
But of course, as I come up and talk to the guy,
oh, just like I like it.
Once it stops
It's
yapping,
gonna be good.
You'll see that his
birthday.
It's not really animated. There's not really a whole lot going on. So it kind of like is a little inconsistent right there.
Milton Patty Hill. Years ago, my mom would tell me that story about happy birthday, and then she'd sing it to me, and I'd say, well, happy birthday, right back to you, Mom.
Yeah. So, pro tip. Make sure you talk to this guy and talk to him as much as you can.
Old home is yours. Mi casa es... So, what brings you up here? Come to chat? Come to trade?
As you can see, there's not really a whole lot of expression in his voice, or in his face, compared to his voice and all that. So that's one gripe I would have there. But overall, it's actually not bad. But so I also consider like the developers, and again, Gunfire Games also developed Darkstalkers, which I don't know if it's the same team of developers who did the first game, which I remember they actually had pretty expressive facial animations in that game. But with Darkstalkers 2, it was a little more stiff. And I haven't had a chance to play the third game, so I can't say much on that. But if it's the same team, I imagine that's kind of where it's all going with. So I would say they definitely took a back step in the character facial animations. But then again, facial animations are sometimes a lot to do. I mean, I don't know, you can make some correlations to other games like Mass Effect and Andromeda and all that, but that's probably a different set of circumstances. But anyways.
Oh, you know, Brabus and his boys. And this old Helio, this is my lonely time. Listen. Farewell, friend. Come round again. That is peak. That's my mom.
Alright, so let's see.
Make it like she told me to.
Anyways.
With names and secrets in
Now, your overall game, I would say, is also pretty short. I mean, in this game, I think there's like, what, effectively 5 worlds. Earth is where we're currently at, and then there's like, what, Rom, Cassis. No, it's only, I think only, well, it's 4 or 5 different worlds. So each one, you're only doing about like 2 major areas. So like, right now, I'm in one section of Earth, which I think I'll go to another section shortly after, but not really a whole lot to explore. So actually, you can, if you really rush through it, and if you, again, don't worry too much about all the extra side quests or the collectibles that you might come across, you can probably finish the game in only a few hours. Also, as a shooter, it's pretty nice that they actually let you toggle the sight. Although, to do so, they made a slightly lazy setup of the character's animation just simply gets so like if your guy is holding the trigger with his right arm, like switch, it's now on the left, so it's not really consistent. But, oh.
He's down!
I guess everyone has ambidextrous here.
Whew, it's over.
But yeah, like that little case where the character does a little call out to kind of signify the end of the combat. It's a nice little detail. It gives the character a little sense of like, hey, yeah, I'm doing this well. And then, I mean, as expansive as the world is, it actually gives you a sense or a reason to kind of explore a little bit. Although, in most multiplayer matches, people are usually just dashing through, so a lot of it ends up becoming kind of a waste to me. So there's no real incentive, no real big incentive for some players to like really scrounge through everything. I mean, you get players like me that will just like want to check in every nook and cranny and see like what we can pick up, but even then it's like not a whole lot really is there to pick up. I can get some extra scrap, extra materials, but that's about it. And most of the time you're going to naturally come across some of it anyways. I mean, you might lose out on 50% of what you could normally, but yeah, it all happens. I just feel that the levels overall were just needlessly large. But then again, who knows? I mean, there may be a point to it, because the devs did indicate that this is going to be a growing title, or a title that they're going to continually improve on with expansions or patches and updates. So who knows? Maybe there will be more involved with the game as the time goes on. So we'll see. I mean, one thing that would be nice is there's a few more enemy types. Oh well. They actually have a decent repertoire so far, but most of it is pretty much the standard fare you usually see in most games. You get your minions that rush you. You get your minions that shoot at you. You get the bigger beefy guys that will charge at you. You got the long-range sniper characters, things like that. So. It's a hit and miss.
How's that, you bastard?
Now, as I'm playing solo right now, which basically is fun on its own, but a lot of people have commented, read comments saying that it's been pretty ho-hum, or people aren't really too impressed with the game as it. But given that there's a co-op player mechanic to it, that's where I think the real magic in this game lies, because it's purely co-op. There's no PvP aspect, with the exception to one specific scenario, but even then that's only one small part. Of course, then again, like most shooters, who knows if they'll decide to make their own battle royale or some other PvP nonsense. But for a co-op dungeon crawler, it's actually pretty fun, especially again if you can get some friends, and even with randos, it's not too bad. Although in some cases you're dealing with people that tend to just shoot you, troll you, or in some cases are just plain cheating. I actually saw one person cheesing in the game. Well, not cheesing, cheating, outright cheating. They were doing more damage than they were capable of doing. They were one-shotting everything, even fellow players. So that was obviously a cheat engine hack of some sort. So that's the only other unfortunate thing with this game, is that they probably have no real mitigation for that. But again, though, if you can get a few friends, which again, this only allows up to 3 people to play together, so it's kind of interesting that it's always like the rules of 3 in terms of players. But if you get some friends here, it's actually not too bad. They up the difficulty a little bit, the amount of health these have, but and in some cases the intensity or the amount of enemies that spawn is also up in certain scenarios too. But so they make it a point to where having more players isn't going to make things easy, but it makes engagements easier to control in certain aspects. Not to mention having the extra firepower is always just fun, and so having that with fire too is always a fun thing to do. So that's where I feel the correlation to Destiny comes for me. So that's also a 3-player party system, which I'm always curious of, considering that this is also on consoles and things like that. Why don't they have like more options for, like, say, 4 players, or heck, even up to 6 players? But you usually would think, hey, why not 4 players? But there's probably a limitation or just general performance balance they have to achieve, and 3 players is probably the middle ground that they have to use. Yeah, it's kind of fun also that the characters actually have a slight personality to themselves outside you just shooting and attacking and getting killed. So like that little call out, they'll shout out here and there like throughout combat. So again, the personality and the immersion in the world is actually pretty decent. I mean, I appreciate it. The little details here and there. And then like another odd impression or thought I had is that, again, getting another game of the same vein as like Darkstalkers, I'm actually finding amusing again that you're playing another post-apocalyptic world game where humanity is on the brink of extinction, and again you're playing the lone hero. But then again, isn't that like most of the games anyway? Oh yeah, as a third-person shooter, it's actually not too bad. I actually like this little detail. So like again, you have your cursor right here. If you move towards cover, you actually get an indication that your shots actually start hitting a obstacle, like that little red dot right there. Okay, yeah, you're actually hitting that instead of actually where you're hopefully trying to aim for. So I find that little detail actually useful and helpful. It's repeating. Again, I appreciate all the little fine details that they add to this. So hopefully they can take a lot of what they've done here into future games or other games to take these notes. Now, as you saw, like, melee fighting is actually pretty solid. I mean, hell, the game starts you off doing it, but you actually can do some pretty interesting, like, loadouts with it. But again, in most encounters, you're not really going to be able to swing your sword at them. But they do a good job making it useful, especially as a last standout, especially considering that there's possible chances you might run out of ammo. And that can happen very, very easily early game, especially if you're not paying attention. And that is probably one other little gripe I have with the game, is that for, say, multiplayer, when you're playing with some other people, like that little book I just picked up and it granted me something, or this little item right here. When I pick it up, they actually gives that or grants that to every player in the session. So there's actually no problem if, like, say, another player comes up and like yoinks the little item off the ground, or if there's a like little scrap pickups on the ground, like off the other side, and another player goes by and picks it up. Everyone gets it. So of course I don't know if it's the same amount. I imagine it is, but all in all, everyone gets a pickup. However, that does not apply to the ammo pickups. So I can kind of see the reason to it. So that way it's not like a bit of a cheese ball where you're getting extra ammo and you have someone just grabbing ammo for everyone, which I can see that being a gameplay aspect. But again, I imagine they kept it to the way it is, where only the person picking up the ammo gets the ammo. So that way there's a little more urgency to divvying up the ammo and all that. But given that the online communication is pretty lacking, I mean, it does have voice over IP, so you can talk to players in game. Although I think there's still some problems, but I think they just addressed that with the recent patch a little bit, with the push to talk for PC and all that. But I mean, if players aren't naturally really like cooperating with each other or paying attention, I mean, some players that just simply take a shot and hoover up all the ammo, especially for someone that's been doing all the fighting, or rather just shooting a whole lot. So you do get situations where, hey, you got someone that needs the ammo, and then suddenly you got some buddy of yours running around sucking up all the ammo, and you're left with one round in your chamber or less. So that's probably one little thing that I find slightly inconsistent, and I understand why they probably went that route, but I figure they should have done it to where, like, hey, like when a player picks up the ammo, he gets the ammo, and all other players get, like, say, half the ammo pickup, or whatever it may be. I mean, from the way they do the game, they scale everything by percentages anyways, so I don't see why that couldn't be done, but I don't know. Don't know if they explored that or not. Speaking of balance, the game actually isn't too bad with the balance, but overall, like Destiny, it never really gives you the sense of feeling really powerful, and you really have to you basically have to exploit things to feel as such. Now, this game does a little better than Destiny in making you feel a little more powerful as you get higher up in your trait levels and your equipment. But even then, like when you raise your equipment to, like, say, like right here, I have plus 20, which is the highest amount for a regular weapon, plus 10 for a boss weapon. The weapon never really feels that powerful. Like, I'm going across the scrub monsters, and I still have to pump a few shots into some of them. Like, well, if I'm not using something like the crossbow, which was meant to really like do a high burst damage on one target, a lot of the weapons don't really feel that powerful, and that's because the game seems to follow on the same premise of you're getting yourself back up to normalcy, or you're trying to get yourself even to the world you're fighting in. So you're never ever really fighting above the world's difficulty or the world's strength. So that's why you can never really feel powerful, which I can probably understand the whole point of it, because you're supposed to be the last handout and you have to struggle and all that stuff. But considering the weapon upgrades, it sometimes feels not really, there's no real point to it. And it's like you only have to do it because, again, if you don't, you're going to actually have a much harder time. And if you spend willy-nilly or have the ability to, it's not like it really benefits you to do it. So there's no real urgency. The only urgency with upgrades is just simply to get yourself up to speed, and that's all it is. Like right there, in many cases, especially if you're, now again, the game also rewards the fact that you have to be hitting them in their weak spots for that red damage. And maybe to give a quick summary of the damage types, you got gray damage, which you're doing less than ideal damage, white damage, which is normal damage, yellow damage, which is crit, and then you got red damage, which is weak point. So again, unless they're hitting those crits or getting weak point damage, you're really going to be spending, like in this case, like the entire magazine to take one target down. So that's why a lot of weapons don't really feel powerful, and that's why you have to really go around figure out what's going to really work. So, so it's hard to say. I'm a little mixed on certain weapons, but it all works out in a way. Let's see. All right. So. But in the end, I think they will do a decent job of making your character feel somewhat powerful, and I think that's all in the traits your character can get, and also your intellect. Because, like, in many cases,
Won't fit. It's over.
because, anyways, going back to the whole traits thing, is that your character basically just collects traits like they're water. So there's, I think I have like what, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, well, 23 traits right now. I think there's probably one, I have like maybe 1 or 2 traits I'm missing. There's probably a few more. And funny enough, they are planning more traits. So realistically, your character's real strength and power really comes in with the boosts that these traits give. And as you see, I actually have a high number because, quite honestly, they don't have a cap, or your player trait rank is not capped. So you can basically max these all out, which is actually not bad. I was actually a little concerned when I first saw this, like if you're going to be limited to, say, only 100 points, which is not too bad, but it's like, okay, so there's going to be like this upper limit that the developers are going to have to address in another form or fashion. But it looks like they kind of did with the fact that, hey, they said, hey, just have all the traits you want. You just gotta level up. So. I find it funny that you're walking on what actually is wood. You're making metal sounds. Oh well. Also, like, I don't know if you've been paying attention with my scrambling here and there, but as you notice, like, the character does have some vaulting capability. There's actually no jump in the game. You just simply have a dodge or a dodge roll. But when you come across like some obstacles, your character has the ability to climb up or vault over as needed. And in some cases, depending on your character's movement speed, like if he's slowly walking, he'll just simply hop up and climb over. If he's dashing, he'll actually do kind of a little bit like a back roll over it, which is kind of cool, but ultimately doesn't really actually speed up anything. It just gives you that sense that, oh yeah, he's running fast, kind of like with Gears of War, where they did that kind of like the speed crab walk, or that shuffle walk that you do to make it look like you're actually running faster, which you barely were. Is there really nothing else here? Alright. Guess so. Now, to maybe draw back on my other point about this game having a procedural aspect to it, is that all the little areas you see are, or maps are kind of in tiles. So I think they have like a few different sections to them. I haven't really taken the time to like really dissect how it's all shaped up, but in most cases the environments are pretty much roughly the same. You'll find very easily like, oh, this is the same little tile set here and there, and all they did was flip it, mirror it, or whatnot. And in some cases it's just simply a change of order, but most often they keep a similar setup in general. So that's why a lot of the environments seem pretty flesh and overall consistent, and nothing seems really wonky or out of place, which is a nice thing. But obviously, kind of they have a check mark saying yes, they are procedural, but not really that procedural. And I guess also maybe to kind of bring it up too about with the game how they address progression overall in terms of like the gear you collect. You have basically a unique collection that you pick up. You're not going to have duplicates of anything. It's basically you have one of each. Of course, in this case, you have your small arms, or small gun, your long gun, your melee weapon, armor, helmet, body, legs, and then a necklace and 2 ring slots. And with that being said, you have only one of each type of item, so you'll only ever have one hunting pistol or all that, unless you sell it and then you pick it up again. But otherwise, like once you pick it up, there's really no point for you to run around and pick it up again. But the small little thing they did do is that if you do choose to pick it up again, a scrap pick up 4 items. So it helps a little bit, especially for people that are running others through it. So there's a little bit of incentive to help others out, especially if you're running low on scrap. But I don't think that's really a big problem for endgame players. Actually, worked out perfect.
Rough.
Not really, but we'll let them say that. No, I actually haven't come across any recently, at least in this playthrough so far. But another thing to do with your exploration is that once in a while you will come across little bits of lore books or notes and all of that, which helps build the world a little bit more, but ultimately there's something you don't really have to really seek out. Only once or twice where they have some importance or relevance to what you're trying to do, like being an answer to a particular puzzle or something like that. So overall, there's not a whole lot of urgency to the lore building or world building as a whole. So ultimately, you kind of disregard a lot of the world, and there's not really a whole point. I mean, the only characters you really meet are in the hub, and most of the time you either got some people you're more or less neutral to, or some you just end up hating because that's how the character has been designed to be. So that's only one of them. You haven't noticed too, like the one thing that they do have in this game is that enemies can hurt. So I saw from the buttons. So that's actually another little detail that I'm kind of glad. Although it does play a part in certain engagements on how things roll out.
Rough.
Like, for example, in one boss engagement, you may want to actually keep a monster up to avoid more spawns. Of course, there are some cases where the boss will just clear the enemies out and thus, hey, you got more spawns. So that's kind of an interesting detail right there. Also, this game also allows sliding, which I don't use too often like I should, but it actually has some pretty good defensive uses. Particularly like what you saw when my guy did that little healing ability. He jumped and was able to avoid that axe flying at his head. So that's actually kind of cool. Oh, there's a trait. Oh, okay. More money. Alright, I might worry about that later. It's not a problem right now, so. This build's pretty ridiculous, especially if you're able to make your shots.
That was rough.
I mean, obviously, you miss your shot, you're stuck reloading. But I've had certain cases where I will make the hit and I still have to reload, but then again, it's a RNG, so not all too unexpected.
Bastard!
I think one thing I'm a little sad not to see in this game is range targets. But I don't know. In some cases, I guess that could be pretty powerful.
Rough.
But hard to see. Who knows? Maybe they'll add it. We'll find out. I guess that's also another thing when they said you can't use projectiles. Because, I mean, outside of like a few rare units that actually have like say a crossbow gun or like some sort of bolt gun of some sort, most enemies' range attacks really subside on throwing axes at you. So you can't actually like shoot those out. Now, if there is the ability, then I just haven't been lucky enough to do so.
it's over.
You also notice sometimes enemies will actually do small dodges too for your shot. For something like my build, it's very annoying when you actually do pull it off. Basically gives you a feeling what it is like to be. Yeah, like right there, the character screams, holy shit. It's kind of funny.
Damn it! That was rough.
Okay, I think I get this around the way. I mean, in terms of lighting, it's actually not too bad, but because this is a freaking flame barrel, which I'm wondering why is there why are there flame barrels in an underground subway with likely no other people around? So, do these aliens or these root things burn these? Or what? Or are these perpetually always on fire? Whatever. But anyways, the point I was about to make is pretty much because it's a flickering flame, it's not really being reflected in your shadow. It's as if it's a static light, which very likely it is in terms of the game design or level design. And that's a small little nitpick I would do. But I think I've noticed a few cases where if you come across areas where there's like a few different light sources, you actually get some of the extra shadows here and there casted by each source, which is actually pretty neat. Like, yeah, right here. I got the one from this torch right here casting down, and then one from the hallway casting yonder. So it's actually pretty cool in a slight way. But then again, that's like what, 2 shadows, so I guess that's not really anything too drastic. Despite the fact that there's technically a third source of light, which is the guy's sword right here. But oh well. Probably done for performance reasons. I mean, heck, this was meant to be played on both PC and consoles, so consoles likely had to be taken into consideration with some of the limitations, and also the variances in people's PCs. So. This being said, I'm probably going to change up one of my elements. my earlier comment about character animations and all that, especially the facial animations being very stiff, this is probably one big
So,
example of this.
another seeks the Root's counsel. Closer, child. It's you, the one who washed ashore.
Yeah.
We see all things. We are the Root Mother.
Yeah, right
What
here
is
the
it
face is
you
overall
seek?
pretty stiff. It's a little amusing overall.
The found, an unwitting. Yes. Clearer it becomes. This vessel no help. They will come. Will you prepare your...
Oh, you got!
On! They weaken!
That was rough.
Is finished. I'm free. Thank you. Soon. First, look there. Find the path. I know.
Yeah, like right there, you really have no real point to care about the character. I mean, they actually have a little journal you can read in this little area, which gives you a little more insight to the person. But even then, it's like, okay, cool. Don't have any real care for them. And that's fun. Yeah. Let's see. Should we explore the chest? hopefully give a good preview on the game if you've come across this as your first time seeing this. Otherwise, maybe some more next time. But anyways, don't know if I'll continue this playthrough or not, but we'll see. I might. But not very much else to talk about until they do some more patches or updates. And there's probably some analysis that could be done, but really I don't think it's really that necessary or useful. Very certain other people have done probably much better takes on that, so I'll leave it to that for now. Besides, not like I need to do it for now. I have no real case of urgency to do it. So, anyways, I guess I'll check out. So, thanks.